Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Business in Calgary podcast, powered by Sonic Coaching. I'm your host, Oliver Basner. I'm pretty excited. I think you're going to enjoy today's interview. I'm sitting here with the co-owner of Ruth's Chris Steakhouse here in Calgary and in Edmonton. And the gentleman's name is Tim Collins. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And just to let you know, Tim was also featured on the cover of the July 2025 edition of Business in Calgary magazine. And so congratulations on being on the cover. I know there's lots we're going to talk about today. So are you okay if we dig in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get going then.
Thank you.
So when did your passion for being a restaurateur start? Where did it all begin?
Yeah.
It's not something usually we say when we're, a kid saying, I'm going to own, a bunch of restaurants, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I get asked a variety of questions that are similar to that. I think the story that, first goes into my brain is my first restaurant jobs. What were they, right? And,
Yep.
I worked for a Greek guy, setting tables when I was 14. And it was an interesting experience at a higher end restaurant in St. Albert, where I'm from,
Yep.
Suburb of Edmonton, basically. And he was an interesting character, really rough on the outside and liked to yell a little bit. So it was an interesting go. But then my second restaurant job was making pizzas for this Lebanese guy who had the most unbelievable pizza recipe. I still crave it to this day. I wish I remembered the recipe.
Oh, you don't
It was
remember
so
it?
good.
Darn.
No. So a bunch of little restaurant jobs. I mean, I worked for a fast food restaurant, branded, back in the day. So yeah, you don't go into it thinking I'm going to own restaurants one day. I think, some people do. Danny Myers claims that was his story, and I believe him actually. He's
Yep.
inspiration to us all. But you just sort of evolve over time, and you realize that's what you love, and you get more excited, and you look for opportunities, and they come bit by bit.
Right.
And, get an opportunity to open a restaurant in a capacity, and then you sort of build on that, and you just end up, year after year building on it.
And there you are. So, let's talk a little bit about the history of Ruth's Chris, because first of all, quite an interesting name. So, I know there's a story behind that, and how did you start the Ruth's Chris, and why Ruth's Chris? And
Yeah, so Ruth's Chris is over 60 years old. Actually, just had its 60th anniversary.
Congratulations.
This spring. So
I know you haven't been there 60
I
years.
have
You're
not been.
old
I'm
enough.
only 51, but yeah. But Ruth Fertel, the story goes that Ruth Fertel bought Chris's Steakhouse.
Right.
She's a single mother of two that was educated. She's a school teacher. She had a dual degree in science, chemistry, and physics, I believe. And she just wanted a better future for her two sons. And she wasn't going to make earn what she wanted to earn to provide that for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she bought Chris's Steakhouse and was very successful. And Chris actually had a little bit of a habit of selling his successful restaurant to somebody, and then they didn't know how to run a restaurant, so he would buy it back from them at a later date for pennies on the dollar.
Interesting.
So Ruth, being as tenacious as she was, didn't let that happen. She ran a great business and was very successful. And she had bought a second property to expand someday. And unfortunately, the original location had a fire, and she it burnt the restaurant down. So she went to her contractor and said, I need to rebuild this. We got to get going. He said, listen, it's going to take me 6 months to rebuild that. He says, but on your new location, your second property, we can build and get you up and running like 5-6 weeks. And so she said, let's do that. So they built this, and we're getting open, and had the signs already made, Chris's Steakhouse. And Chris, the former owner of Chris's Steakhouse, phoned her up and said, "Oh, read your contract. You can't use Chris's Steakhouse name anywhere except the property that you bought it from me." So then she had to add her name on it. And she admitted it wasn't the greatest marketing tool, but it seemed to work out in the end. It's odd enough for everybody to ask, what's with the weird name?
Right.
And
And memorable.
memorable,
as well.
yeah.
So when did you first experience Ruth's Chris?
Well, I debated this with my sister at lunch today because I don't really recall. I thought I did, and then she has a different recollection. So we're going to say somewhere around my early 20s, and we were on a family vacation, and were my dad had known about Ruth Chris, and so we had visited this restaurant and just had the most amazing experience that I didn't even know existed, actually, because we'd never eaten in that style of restaurant before.
Right.
And it was just so memorable. And I think I referenced before that we used to plan visiting Ruth Chris as a family on our family vacations after that, because it was so incredible.
That's pretty
right?
neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a long time ago. So
Yeah.
So that's where you originally experienced it, and then decided to bring it to Canada.
Yeah, actually, I'm friends with a lot of the franchisees now, but when my dad first had the idea that he wanted to bring Ruth Chris to Calgary and Edmonton for us, he couldn't get a response from Ruth Rittel. She wouldn't reply to any of his mail at the time,
Really?
because email wasn't used in the 90s like it is today. And for years he wrote. I remember he came into the office one day and he said, "That's it. This is the last letter." I mean, his language was more colorful than I'll use here, but this is the last letter I'm going to write. And if they don't answer, I'm giving up on this. And it was years he was doing this for. And finally got a response. And what had happened is that, and my friends who are franchisees will attest that she liked to have friends as her franchisees. Or she knew everybody. It was a very close knit group.
Right.
And my dad was an outsider. He didn't know her, so that's why he didn't get a response. Well, fortunately and unfortunately, fortunately for us, but unfortunately for us longer term, because she's such an inspiration, is that she passed away in 2002. And she had sold the company in the late 90s to a sort of a I think what would be described as more of a venture capitalist group, I guess, or,
Right.
or sort of a money company, and so they respected the brand while she was alive, and when she passed away, they started having conversations about expanding it outside of the friend group, and that's really where my dad actually got a response on that letter from them saying, "Yes, we're interested in speaking with you." And so it's too bad that we didn't get to know her when she was alive, because every story I hear is incredible about her.
Right.
Such an interesting person, such a hardworking, sort of
Tenacious sounds
yeah,
like.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, really inspiring. Listening to her best friend is Lana Duke, and Lana's the franchisee in Toronto. She owns 3 in Toronto and 3 in San Antonio. I'm very good friends with her, and she'll talk for hours about Ruth, and I love it. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the industry in general. I mean, as you know, the restaurant industry has a huge failure rate, even with good food and service as well. So what have you done over the years to differentiate yourself from the competitors? How are you different?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Ruth experience is different than our competitors. We have our own pieces that make it unique, and we can talk a little bit about that if you like. But I think that if you back up to the brand itself, it's such a long-standing, successful. You're 6 decades now. I mean, how many brands and restaurants are 6 decades? And not only that, there's over 160 restaurants at Ruth Chris right now, with a great big plan of expansion over the next decade. It's already the largest fine dining steakhouse in the world. There's not a close second. And so success comes from consistency in restaurants. And I think that it's we focus on bringing in the best quality product we can buy. And we don't cut corners, and we make sure that when you get served something, it's craveable and memorable.
I like it. Yeah. So, I know it sort of, the news got out already, but, tell our listeners about some exciting news about your Calgary location, because I know you're excited about it.
Yeah. Well, I was working on this for a long time. I was excited that a friend of mine who's a real estate broker, he introduced me to somebody that is now going to become our new landlord. We're going to move locations from the current location on the 2nd floor of the Calgary Tower over to the old Chop House location on 8th Ave and 5th Street. So we'll be opening there in spring of 2027.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any secrets you could tell us about for that new location?
I have no secrets. I'm transparent about it. Yeah. What do you want to know?
Decor, and is the menu going to change? And tell us a little bit about what people can expect.
Well,
Let's get them excited.
yeah, sure. I mean, it's one of these things in business, and people ask, what gets you motivated or whatever. What gets me motivated is something I didn't foresee happening.
Yeah.
And the first instinct is, wow, that's so great. I got to do that, And when I got proposed this idea, my first instinct was, wow, I want this to happen, right? And because it's such an iconic location, and, the Barron Building itself has a fantastic history.
It does.
Right? And my landlord, Riaz, he's the expert on the history of the Barron Building. So if you want to know about the Barron Building, you can talk to him. But the chop house that's attached to it is, the whole building itself is like that Art Deco feel, right?
Yeah.
And that architecture. So we're going to be playing with that. I've been speaking to a few designers, trying to hone it down to choosing one here in the next little while. And I love listening to what they have in mind, because they all know the space, they all know the building, they all know the history. So it's about feeding off of what Riaz and Strategic are doing on that building, and complementing the history of the Barron Building with the history of an iconic steakhouse. So really excited about that piece of it. There is going to be sort of a private dining room in the basement, kind of a cellar feel, like a wine cellar feel. So that's my personal sort of ask for the space. I think it's going to be pretty unique and special for people to have for special events, whether it's a corporate event or a family event or birthdays, anniversaries, whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going to play around with the four-season patio out the one side of it. And so I don't know how that's going to look yet, but I'm pretty excited about that. And we're going to play around with valet parking for our guests.
Okay.
So we're going to integrate that somehow into our design plan. So something different and unique. You don't get that unless you go to a higher-end hotel, right? So we're gonna try and do that.
And you said 4-season patio, not 3-season.
Yeah, correct.
Oh,
yeah,
love it.
Well, I mean, we've had a great summer this year, other than the large amount of rain we've had. So you like to protect the experience and use it as much as you can. If we're going to build it, we might as well build it so that we can use it as much as possible for people. And we may be able to design it in a way where we can turn it into more of a private dining room as well, if people want to do a Christmas party or whatnot there too. So
sounds exciting.
Yeah.
So rough launch date? When do you
we're gonna open spring, so we're planning for April of 27.
Right.
I've come to terms with the existing landlord on the turnover of the existing space and the opening of the new space, and that's the plan, and we've got lots of time to make it happen. And
yes, you do.
But I've opened enough restaurants to know that sometimes the unexpected happens. So, but we're hoping that we close the current one and open the other one kind of concurrently. We'll have time where we'll have to have maybe a little bit of time off in between so we can train more staff. We'll need more people to accommodate the new space and the new amount of business that we expect to do out of it. So, but it won't be long. We won't be without Chris for long, because my family likes to eat there, so we can't have it shut for too long.
They might have to go to Edmonton to the other location, right? So any menu changes planned? Anything exciting coming for the menu?
Yeah. So, I said earlier the consistency is such a big piece of steakhouses. It is. And so we buy Canadian prime steak. So prime steak is the top percentages of all beef cut.
It is.
I can't even find it in a grocery store. I can't even find it from the butcher shop. It's pretty rare to find because it's all taken from hotels and restaurants and so forth, right? So we don't mess around with that too much. I'm constantly working in the background on that supply chain, and my vendors do a great job, keeping us having the best product. But what we play around with a little bit, so we've got the consistency of the brand, and we've got the consistency of what we do best, and we do it extremely well. But what we get to play around with a little bit is, adding a side dish or adding dessert that, you may have not seen before. And, so we've started to already evolve the food menu a little bit, and we just do it a little bit at a time because our guests expect what they have come to know us for, right?
Their
so,
favorite dishes when they get
correct,
back,
right? So you don't want to mess with that too much. But I'll give you an example. I was in BC a couple weeks ago, and we're at this resort, and they I have a gluten allergy. I have a gluten intolerance, not allergy, but my girlfriend has a dairy allergy. Okay.
Right.
So ordering with us is unique sometimes. So this place actually had a gluten-free, dairy-free dessert, and it was a hazelnut peanut butter bar, and I think there were stacked 2 or 3 of them. It was the most unbelievable dessert. So what I did is I took one back with me. I froze it and took it back with me, and took it to one of my chefs, and I said, "Can you make something like this?" Well, 24 hours later, he had it figured out.
He had it deconstructed
Yeah.
and rebuilt already, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so he's a master baker, so he can do that. He has that skill. I give him 2 weeks to figure it out, and he had it in 24 hours. So, but these are the things we'll play with a little bit.
Right.
The other thing we're going to play with a lot is we're going to have a much bigger happy hour bar scene than what we would have in the current location, and we're going to play with the type of alcohol offering we have, and we're going to become known more for our bar that we have. And so that'll be enough to lead for today, but it's going to be exciting what we do for the environment and the atmosphere and the vibe that we create for you to meet somebody at 3:00 in the afternoon for happy hour and some lounge bites and some great options for drinks.
Sounds like some exciting things to look forward to in
Yeah.
about a year.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned that bar.
Yeah.
Because I was diagnosed with celiac years ago,
Oh, wow.
and so can't have the gluten, and dairy's I do have some dairy, but it's a problem, so
Yeah.
I have to come down just for the new bar.
Well, maybe I'll get it to you beforehand so you can tell me what you think of it.
Absolutely.
But my team loves it. So, and I tell you, I didn't know that actually. So I will definitely make sure we get some in your hands first because I'm excited about it. And that's one nice thing about Ruth Chris. A lot of brands will say, this is what you do. And here's the box you work in, right?
Yeah.
Ruth Chris has an open mind to say, well, what can you show us that's new that would be exciting for us?
Right.
And then,
So they let you play a little
Yes.
bit, and then maybe share the best practices.
Yeah, so we'll get a recipe approved and say that's great, and they'll put it on for other franchisees. I'll phone friends of mine and say, you should try this. We made this. You go on and pick the recipe off online and maybe try it in your restaurant, right? So that makes it a lot of fun. So we have the stability of the brand being consistently great for 60 years, and we have the flexibility of adding to the greatness. And that's what makes it really fun for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about the business of owning restaurants and being a business owner. So, it doesn't come without its challenges, as we know, right? And you've grown the business over the years. You've grown. I know you've got multiple restaurants and a couple of different franchises. Tell us about the challenges that you've had to deal with, and how do you stay resilient? How did you deal with those tough times? And maybe there's an example you could even share with our listeners.
Oh man, that's such a great question. It's pretty loaded.
It's very loaded. And it's true, right? We all have those challenges we've had to deal with over the years, right? And
Yeah.
what are the learnings those little nuggets you can impart?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to use cliches when you're asked a question like this, but it's not getting too high and not getting too low. You're really not that good, and things really aren't that bad, and it's hard to see it in the time sometimes. 2020 was probably the biggest influx in business challenge for many of us.
Right.
Restaurants hit us so hard in restaurants, and obviously
And many didn't make it through the pandemic.
Many didn't make it, and I don't want to talk too much about that time because it's such a negative, but we have to use it as an example of you better be properly leveraged at all times. Mm-hmm. The people that were over leveraged quickly went under. Those stories you didn't hear because the bigger story was what was going on. But then you saw companies not be, they weren't the same company 2 years later.
Right.
They had to cut corners and they had to change who they were. So I think, being properly funded and proper debt equity ratios, and just having a little bit of an arsenal in the bank account, to be ready for things and not, we've always been pretty good that way in all of our businesses, but I got a lot more conservative after that time, and I keep more money in the bank now, and I keep, less debt now,
Right.
because you're going to need, it's the unforeseen, it's the thing I worry about most is the things we can't predict, or the things we can't predict. And you know, something's going to happen at some point. We're like, wow, how could you ever see that happening? Yet it happens. And you know that real estate ebbs and flows, and yet you look at 2008 and 2009 and see what happened in real estate in the United States. You knew it was going to happen. You didn't know it was going to happen that bad, right? And so that industry just got hammered, knowing they were going to hit one day, but they didn't know it was going to be that bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the thing with what we face with every day in business. It's the things you can't predict. You know, you can predict some things, but you can't predict how bad they're going to be. So just be prepared for everything.
Right. Not only does real estate go up and down, but we've seen economies change, and you know, constant threat of recession with what's going on now, and especially in North America. And you know, I like that. You know, making sure that you're not heavily leveraged, right? And
Yeah.
rainy days come. You have to be prepared for them. It's not will they come; it's they do come.
Well, and you should treat your personal finances the same way, right?
Right.
Have a little bit of an arsenal there, and it takes time to build it up. I mean, we all start with the same number. You know, the other thing, I mean, we use tariffs as a current example, right?
Yeah.
And you know, tariffs definitely hurt all of us, no matter what people say. You know, we got hit with it over the last year or so, and things just cost more for us. Yet I can't pass through that cost to our end user at the same rate it's happening to us. So what's happened is we make less money. We're
Right.
making less money this year than last year. Not because we're worse or we're not doing something right. It's just because that's the cost right now of doing business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm optimistic that we're going to see it, you know, sort of flow the other way at some point. And we're starting to see some cracks in the armor, but who knows when that's going to happen? Is it going to be 3 months from now, 6 months, 2 years from now? But I'm optimistic that
After the next U.S. election, maybe.
yeah, maybe we have to
knows,
wait that
right?
long, right?
Yeah.
We don't know, but that's again, it's what we don't know. So
It's true.
You just prepare, and just do your best to weather it. And you know, our goal is to give you the same experience that you came in for last time at the same price. And we try so hard to do that. What's interesting though is that during COVID, when we reopened post-COVID, I didn't raise my prices for years. Like probably 3 years. I didn't touch my prices. I just took the hit on the profit because
Right.
people were very vocal about how expensive restaurants got. And finally, I had to take price. And I remember seeing some of these complaints come in online. These people say, every time I come in, your pricing's different. You're so expensive. You've put in so many price increases. I thought, I've taken one increase in 3 years. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you're not coming in often enough, but
Yeah.
you know, so a lot of times it's just people's perception of what they believe from the narrative that's out there.
Yeah.
And so we have to be aware of that as well. And we have to make sure that we do our best to give them that quality of what we provide and at the price they expect us to be
Mm-hmm.
at. You know, I'll address what people ask me a lot, which is, you know, you'd say something like, you're an expensive restaurant. And I'd say, yeah, we are, but we're worth it. And, you know, that's our goal. And that's what I want to see if we get online reviews saying, you know, anything around expensive and whatnot. I always want to see, but worth it. Or, hey,
Right.
bring your wallet, but it's worth it.
But a great meal,
Yeah.
right?
So,
Great steak.
So we're successful at that. If you look at our online reviews, we're one of the best online reviewed restaurants in the city. But it's work, you know, and people are looking for value, whether or not you're going to your favorite fast food restaurant that was known for value meals and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's value, but you know what you're paying, and it's the value of that, right? For us, it's the same thing. You're getting the best steak you're ever going to have. To me, it's going to be priced more expensive than most restaurants, but man, it's going to be worth it. So
Right.
that's what we're always striving for, right?
Well, and you said, I mean, you're taking the best of the best when it comes to the beef, the prime, right? And my dad was a butcher me growing up, so I'm very
Okay.
familiar with, you know, that's not a steak you can get everywhere.
It's
right?
not. And what
So-
people don't know is that within prime or AAA or any of the grading, different grades, there's actually 3 measurements within the grade. There's a low, a mid, and high, right, for marbling and so forth. Yeah. So you could get a prime steak that's sort of a lower end of prime, and it looks similar to the best of AAA.
Right.
So, you have to really trust your vendors, and you really have to have great partnerships to make sure that you're getting what you need. So I can sit here and say all I want about providing the best, but I'm only going to be able to do it if my partners back me up, right?
Right. Yeah, no, that's great. I've got, that question I always ask everybody that I interview, which is, what do you wish someone would have told you at the start of your journey? Because we've already obviously got listeners here that are probably at the start of their journey, right? And so what do you wish, what's that sage advice now that you can give? You've been doing this for a while.
Well, I prepped for this because you ask everybody this one. And
Love it.
well, depending on my mood, I could answer so many different ways. And so one thing I wrote down that I don't know if people talk about enough is that, I appreciate my competitors. Sometimes they're a pain for me because they do really well at something, but that makes me better because it makes me hungry still. I've been doing this a long time, and I eat at my competitors regularly because I respect them and I think they do a great job at a lot of things.
Yes.
And the only way I'm going to be better than them is understand where their level is and try to do better than that. So I do appreciate them for that. We in Calgary, we're very blessed with a lot of great restaurants.
We are.
Not just steakhouses, but restaurants in general. Yeah, we're very privileged. So I don't think that's said enough, right? So, but if I go back to my younger self, I like when people tell me to talk less and listen more. And that's such a hard thing to do in business when you're a leader, I think. And, you've been in business a long time. Certain people, the quiet ones are often the most deadliest when they speak.
Yes.
I love that, and I wish I could be that way. And, and it doesn't matter how old you are and how long you've been doing, our craft of business, you're still trying to be that better version of yourself. And that's one thing that I wish I could listen better and speak less. So
I really like that because I had, you may know him because it's a small city, but I had Howard C., who's the CEO of Cedar Glen Homes, on the show here a few weeks ago. And he's that guy, right? He's quiet, but when Howard says something, it's well thought out and you better pay attention,
Yeah.
right? So that's great advice.
Well, and it's funny when you get to know those people, when they do speak, everything around them shuts down like, oh, wow, everybody listen.
Yes.
It's such a powerful thing when you're in that presence, right? So, but I like this one, and I think one of your past guests had a different way of saying it, but I wrote this down. I said, be who you are and hire who you're not. Let others take some weight off you so you can be the best at what you're best at. And, I think when you talk to any leader, like I'm not going to be the best at anything. I have people that run restaurants better than me. I have people that are better at certain pieces of the business than I am. In general, I know a lot about a lot of things, but it's hard to profess to be an expert in anything.
Right. You've got some great chefs in your restaurants.
Great chefs, right? Yeah. And great general managers and great servers. And, you put me on the serving floor, I'll get by, but I am not going to be the best server. I'm going to mess things up. I'm going to be the one that's spilling something on you by accident and apologizing the rest of the night, But even the way they sort of present themselves around tables, there's a skill to that. There's a way that feels like you're in an elevated experience, right? And so I love having people around me that are teaching me all the time,
right?
And are better at things than me. It makes me sleep better at night when I know that, hey, I'm surrounded by experts in all these little fields that we have to bring together to make this experience for people, right?
I really like that because as you know, I do a lot of coaching with leaders, founders, and executives, and we use behavioral assessments during that coaching, right? And I always say, like, you can't hire everybody that's the same personality or behavioral profile as you. You need people who've got strengths where you've got weaknesses, right? And you've got strengths where they've got weaknesses, because with every strength comes a corresponding hidden blind spot.
That's right.
Right? So you need somebody around you who's going to pick up on your blind spot, right?
And when you're first starting out, you want to be around people that sort of have a similar view on things, because you want to feel validated almost, because you're still insecure about your own business and whatnot. And I did it myself, for sure. I did this where I hired like-minded people, which was a far longer road than hiring people that were complementary to my personality, where I'm weak at this piece, so I need somebody that's better, maybe say communication with the team or something. I'm an ideas person, but maybe I can't word it in a way that people are going to
Right.
accept that. So yeah, it's tricky, right?
Well, we chatted before the show here, and you were even mentioning you've got a server who's, I believe, in his 60s, you said,
Yeah.
and challenges, and has ideas for you all the time, and you're great with it. You
Yeah.
actually like that they're coming with the ideas.
I love
right?
it. Yeah. I think that when you have an environment when people can share, you're so much better off.
Right.
And I think that sometimes people, I've been told I can be intimidating sometimes, which I kind of laugh because I think if you know me, I kind of I'm jovial. I like to laugh a lot and whatnot, but I'm serious as well. I'm serious
Sure.
about making sure we're running a great business that, I'm proud to tell my friends to go and visit, and, people I meet on the street, yeah, I'm part of Ruth's Chris. I want to be proud of that, right?
Right.
So we're picky about it. But also, we're in a fun business. And if you suck all the fun out of it, that's a you problem, So people come for a great experience. There's a serious business table that doesn't want to be bothered. But a lot of people want the experience of, getting to know you a little bit and you getting to know them. We have a lot of great regulars in our restaurants that are, make our day. They come in and they tell us about the week, or they tell
Yep.
us about some experience they just had. And yeah, you just get to be friends with people, and it's no different in the team. We get to be friends with our team, and it's fun. We have all these different histories in life and all these personalities. It's a fun business.
Great, and you've been in it a long time. So if you're saying that now, that means you really are enjoying it,
Yeah.
right? So that's great. I see personal development and professional development as really one and the same. So what's been your favorite self-development book or tool that you could recommend?
I this is going to sound funny, I think, in some way, but I just finished a book today, an audio book that I don't know about you, but I have the intention of listening to a book a week, and it ends up being 5 weeks of listening to a book.
Same book, right?
Yeah, because I get
I'm
on
the
too
same.
many phone calls in the car, right? I'd
Yep.
rather just listen. But I just finished this book by Mel Robbins, The Let Them Theory. I don't know if you.
Oh, I don't know that one. Okay.
Yeah, it's a bestseller. I had so many credits. I'm sure a lot of us are like this. You have so many credits. I'm like, okay.
And you don't want to cancel
I
because
don't
you
want,
lose the
I
credits.
don't want to lose
right?
the credits, right? So I went in and I got 12 books or something, and then I paused my membership. So now I got to listen to these books, and this one kind of struck me, and it just, that to me is a good example of a book that is pertinent for day-to-day life and business. And it's, I think a lot of people have listened to it. It's
Yep.
if not, it's one of the top books in the last year. And a lot of people, usually my female friends, like my friends' wives have listened to this, but it's actually a book I would listen to for just the business content as well. Because at the end of the day, business is about people. And it's about dealing with people, and it's about dealing with differences, and it's about getting people on board and getting people, motivated and inspired to work, towards the same goal in the same direction, right?
Right.
The thing is, we all have different styles, and that's okay, as long as we agree on the end goal, right? And so that book was very useful for me, and I would encourage anybody that's interested in learning more about dealing with people. That's going to be very helpful.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's the first time one of my guests has recommended that one, so that's a new one for our listeners. So,
well, it's not a
thanks for
traditional
sharing.
business book. That's
No.
probably why.
Yeah.
I have a lot of favorites, but
Yeah.
I'll listen to a book and I'll kind of forget a little bit about it until somebody else brings up, oh yeah, I did read that one, or listen to that one. That was a good one. But I try to listen to a business book, but then a life book, and then maybe just a fun book. There's a silly one was the history of Lego, that story about that family and where it came from. That was a really interesting read.
Yeah.
That one I actually read. I didn't listen to that one, so it took me a little longer, but that was fun. Yeah.
Well, our listeners can't see my office, but I actually collect Lego models. So I've got Lego car models in my office, and so I'm a big Lego fan. I find that de-stresses me, right? It's like shut my brain off, just go build something.
We're all big
right?
kids at the end
Totally.
of the day, right? And
we want to have fun, right? And we want to have
fun.
great experiences when we go out to eat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to you about that Lego thing later, because there's some new sets coming out that my son's 14. I'm like, hey, what do you think about this one? We could do this one together. It'll take us 40 hours.
That's awesome. Perfect. Great bonding, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, we're kind of getting close to time here, but I have one more question for you. You've got so many great dishes on your menu. What's your personal favorite?
Oh, that's tough. Really depends what I'm in the mood for. I'll give you a few if that's okay.
Sure.
So when it comes to steak, I have to stick with tenderloin. It is the king's cut. It has got micro marbling in it, and it has got that tenderness that all of us think steak should be like that, but it's the only cut that is.
Yes.
And the micro marbling gives us great flavor still.
Right.
And one thing I like to maybe tell people about is ribeye steak would be my second favorite.
That's my personal number one.
Is it?
Favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my advice, this is free advice today, take it or leave it. I like to cook my tenderloin sort of mid-rare. That's
Right.
Everybody in Canada, I think mid-rare is kind of the default, right? Well, when you order a ribeye, you have to cook it more. You have to cook it at least medium, because and I know a lot of people like to order medium rare, and that's fine. We cook it however you want, but you need to render the fat. You need to cook the steak, cook the fat a little bit more, and that's where this fat will get softer, and you'll get a more tender ribeye.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know that. And so we're not going to tell people at the table that, but I think that's something I've shared with all my friends, and like, yeah, just try it this way. And if you don't love it, I'll cook you another one, right? But it's something that I think everyone would want to know that loves steaks. But when you get into, we have our lamb rack. I probably order that a lot more often these days. It is unbelievably tender. It's so flavorful, and it's not wild tasting. I think a lot of people think that lamb is too wild, but it's a beautiful, soft flavor. And then we have an unbelievable salmon. That's I call it kind of like the prime salmon of the ocean. It's grown in glacier waters, and it is just so beautiful and juicy and flavorful. And again, it doesn't have any fishy flavor to it at all, because I think a lot of people think, yeah, I don't really like the fishy flavor.
Right.
None of that with that. So, but if you're coming in for dessert, one of the desserts that we have, my favorite dessert was always the creme brulee. It is unbeatable. It's the best out there. I've never found another one like that, and I order it everywhere I go. But we have a banana cream pie that's not on every Ruth's Chris menu. So a lot of people that travel around the world and they come to our Ruth's Chris like, what's that? Well, you try it.
I want to try it.
Yeah, because it's unique to our stores. And all of our food's made from scratch in house. Right? We don't cut corners. We're in there every day. The guys and girls are doing a great job creating this fresh food for our guests every day. So I'm really proud of that.
Great, thanks for sharing that. It's if our listeners aren't hungry by now, they should be.
Oh,
quite
I'm
frankly.
hungry.
Exactly. So, Tim, you've shared some nuggets today. You've shared your story. Really appreciate you being with me today and sharing all of that with the listeners. And, obviously, if somebody can take something away from, learning from you that saves them some pain, that's always the goal here. So thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm happy to do it. I really enjoyed the format, and it's been great talking to Oliver, and appreciate your time and all the work that you guys do at Business in Calgary and Business at Edmonton.
Great, thank you. Well, you've been listening to the Business in Calgary podcast. I'm your host, Oliver Basner, and watch for our next show in a couple of weeks. Thanks, everyone.